splattered with hollow.
Along the lines of Danielle's comment, when my daughter got married several years ago, she wanted somehow copies of all the recipes with all of the stains on them and the notes on them, and so we made a digital, cookbook. We called it From Generation to Generation. And it's messy, but.
And I actually should say that. So years ago, my husband and I made a book for my mom where we took from all the cookbooks and all the note cards and all the everything, her favorite recipes. And we put it, we didn't have pictures, but we just typed them up. There's, an online recipe program, we entered them in, we typed them up, and then we divided them into appetizers and soups and whatever. But what we did that she uses every single year is we did it for Passover. And because Passover is very complicated, and we wrote down all her Passover, all her standard Passover things, and then some of the Passover things that she doesn't quite use every year. But the thing that she uses absolutely every year without fail is we wrote a Passover to-do list. And so it says, do this a week before, put this in the freezer, and then we wrote a shopping list, and we wrote a game plan for Passover, and every year when we go over to Passover, that cookbook is on our counter. So it was not the hardest thing in the whole world to do. It took a little effort, but it's the most amazing Hanukkah present ever. She's been using it for like 15 years. Yeah. Any other questions? Or are you just buried under, did I snow you under the books?
Well, we are snowed, but I think one of the things, because I'm hearing it from all of us, is that it's not only the new cookbooks, but it's the traditions. How did my mother make X, whatever X is? And I know for me, my mother didn't use cookbooks for much of it. It was all, somehow in her head. And when you asked her, how do you make whatever it is? Oh, you use a little of this, a little of that. And she could never give me a recipe. And that was one of the big frustrations I had. And for a few things that I really cared about, I made her do it in front of me, and I started quantifying how much of a little was and how much a lot was, and created a couple of, just for a few things, recipes myself that I could reproduce that at least got close to some of the things that she did. But one of the ones that we haven't been able to reproduce is my husband's mother's chocolate cake recipe, and no matter what I do, it's never good.
Well, I will tell you that I have helped a lot of people. I mean, I can't get the chocolate cake recipe, but I have helped a lot of people where they have said, my mom made kugel, and I have no idea how she made kugel, and it is quantified in some of these classic books that I showed you. That's why I'll never get rid of them. And then we have been able to look at 5 kugel recipes or whatever, and they'll say, that's the right kugel recipe, and they measure it out. So sometimes we're successful. Chocolate cake is a bit challenging.
I've discovered that.
Yeah.
My question is, I know it's been a while since you made that wonderful cookbook for your mother-in-law, but
Mother.
I'm
My
sorry.
mother-in-law is Catholic, so she doesn't do
Oh, right.
Passover.
That's right. But I was wondering if you know what website or program or what would be good for making a cookbook now.
Well, so they have changed over time. So every time we've done it, there's been something new. The one that I love, and what I use now, and it's an app, and probably it's out of date now because, okay, it's called Paprika. And I have it on my, I have it on my Mac, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And I had to pay maybe $10 for it or
Yeah,
something. But it is the most amazing thing. One, I can type in a website from anywhere, and let's say the thing is on cooking.com. I just put in the website, cooking.com/Paula, and it'll import that entire recipe right into my program, and now I have the whole recipe in its format. Number 2, can say what I have in my pantry, I have salt, I have dill, I have whatever, and then it can tell me what to shop for. So if you put all your Passover recipes, and you can print all those, and if I put all my Passover recipes in there, I can make my Passover shopping list from, well, I already have potatoes. Do you know what I mean? And then, because then it will say, this recipe requires 3 potatoes, and I'll say I have 2 in my pantry, and it'll say shop for 1. And so it's amazing. I have my computer with me afterwards, I'll show it to you. And I can get it on my phone, so I can go to the grocery store, and I can see, here's how I make kashka, and whatever.
Is it spelled the same as regular?
Paprika.
Is it paprika recipe $4.99?
It has a little box. It's that. But I have it on my computer and my phone. And I'll show it to you. I have it on my computer in the library if you want a demo. Joel.
Susan, I was wondering, do you think that somewhere, right now, there's a group of people like this talking about Catholic recipes, and Episcopal recipes, and Methodist recipes?
I mean, are you asking if...
Generic, well, not specifically, but
Yeah, I mean, I think
is
that
this a
there are...
Jewish thing to hone in on Jewish recipes and create a whole genre? Or is it?
I mean, I think that, yes, there are, I think that what we pass down from generation to generation, no matter who we are, is very important. I think there are a lot of cultures very interested in food, Italians, Catholics, everybody who eats, that people who eat.
But do they publish books about it?
They do.
Okay.
The cookbook industry is enormous. I happened to, when I was in New York this weekend, I went to, for work, I went to my other job. I went to 5 bookstores, and I looked at every cookbook section, and some of them had one of these cookbooks, some of them had 5 of these cookbooks, and then there were another 100 cookbooks on every topic you can think of, or 200 cookbooks. So the cookbook industry has exploded. Yes, so I do think there are people talking about it everywhere.
It's interesting though, because when you hear about what the younger generation is doing, they're not cooking.
A lot of these cookbooks are very exact. How to cook rhubarb. You know what I mean? They're not rhubarb, that's a bad example, but do you know what I mean? They're like, why would you cook rhubarb with honey glaze? I don't know. It's a big industry. I've met, when I've gone to publishing events, I've met cookbook editors, and there are divisions of publishing houses that just do cookbooks. It's a big industry.
My sister went to a bookstore in New York that's all cookbooks.
Yeah, I would believe it. I should have gone there.
And she doesn't cook. That's the funniest
But
thing.
it doesn't matter. Like I said, most of the people,
She bought me something.
most of the people who check out the cookbooks don't make the recipes.
You just want to look at the pictures.
And I think that you should. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Check them out, enjoy them, look at them, like get ideas or just enjoy looking at the food. I mean, why, you don't have to go home and use 3 peppercorns. And also, you should, experiment and, my challah recipe has changed so much. I will say, a chef told me, and I'm sure you know, that, the baking part is really chemistry. So when you're baking, it's a little harder to mess with a little this and a little that, but, chicken soup, clearly you can do whatever you want.
And I think that's one of the benefits of, I do it all the time. I'll look at the same recipe in 2 or 3 cookbooks. I won't follow any one of them specifically, but I'll mix and match. Right. Chicken soup being a good example. You take one part of it from this cookbook and some other thing from some other cookbook. And
you say, oh, hey, dill, that's a good idea. I didn't think of dill.
Susan, I have one comment and one question for you.
Too many books.
No. I'll first offer the comment, which is what I have found with the younger generation is not necessarily that they don't cook, but that they turn to the internet for recipes.
Right.
I
do that too.
And I do it as well whenever I decide I'm going to cook something that I haven't made before. And the other thing is a question. Is there such a thing as a Jewish vegan cookbook?
I'm sure if there's not, there will be. I can search for you, but if there's not, so 2 comments is, one, I should just say that I am obsessive about buying cookbooks, and so I search like up to a year in advance of what's available, and I buy it the week or a week before it comes out. And if you're looking for a Jewish cookbook, I really hope that I have all the current books. And so when that Jewish vegan cookbook comes out, I do hope to have it.
Please
Yes.
let me know. I'll send it. I'll buy one for my son-in-law.
The other thing is that the thing about the internet, and hey, I use it too, is that you have to, like anything on the internet, you have to really be concerned with where it's coming from. And so if, you know, random person puts up a recipe, it's very different. Recipes and cookbooks have been tested, and the editors have tested, you know, like they've been tried out, and they've been reviewed, and they've been, you know, if you go to the Washington Post, what they post there, oh, very, very invited guest here. So if you go to what the Washington Post recipes post in the food section, those have been tested and experimented with. If anybody just posts a recipe online, it won't necessarily work out. And you can see that because when you go to cooking.com or whatever, you'll see, well, it didn't work, this didn't work, I added flour, I added sugar, I added this, I added that. And so be careful of the source that, just like anything else on the internet, be careful of the source you're getting from. And so cookbooks are useful, particularly the ones that are not self-published, but are from somewhere like Random House, that you know that they can be backed up. You know that you can trust them, and you know that they will work, even if you might not like the recipe. I also really like cookbooks that are sometimes from multiple sources and multiple perspectives, and not just one person necessarily. So there's nothing wrong with online cooking. Of course we all do it. I'm not saying that you wouldn't, but I'm just saying, but at the same time, when we're all using online recipes, the cookbook industry is exploding. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah.
I didn't get to see the slow cooker cookbook.
It's
Does
here.
somebody have it?
It's here. We'll unearth it. Yeah.
It might be up on the
Slowly
table.
making its way.
We'll find it. We'll find it for you, and I'll find the one that Eleanor's interested in. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for anyone who wants to write a cookbook?
Yeah. So if you want to write a cookbook, what I would say to anyone who wants to write a book is sorry. What I say to anyone who wants to write a book on any topic is that you should read books in that topic. So if you want to write a cookbook, then you should go to the library or go to the bookstore. But the library is better in this case, and check out, 30 books. If you want to, 30 books on that are similar to yours, that look like yours, and see what they're doing and what they're doing with cookbooks. Not as you remember them, but what they're doing today and what they're publishing today. You should also look at what publishers are publishing cookbooks. So if which publisher really speaks to you, and you should check out a number of books from that publisher. You should it's not the worst idea to get an agent for a cookbook, because then you can really, the agent can sell to maybe a better publishing house, and then you can get better pictures and better production value in that book, and then when it's for a better publishing house, that book can get into better, more bookstores and libraries. And I think that you really need to do research. Mm-hmm. So it's not just what's my favorite recipes, but what am I trying to say with this cookbook? What's the point of this cookbook? What am I trying to educate? And you need to, if you look at a lot of them, they discuss the history of that cuisine, or they tell you a lot of basic information. And also, what level do you want to write it at? Are you, what I didn't bring in today, but it is on your bibliographies, is all the children's cookbooks. And so, who are you writing for? So, when I passed around the kosher cookbooks, are you writing for someone who's just becoming kosher? Or are you writing for, someone who has been kosher their whole life? Are you writing, who is your audience? Who do you expect to read this cookbook? I could keep going, but
Okay,
is
thank
that
you.
kind of give you an idea?
That was beautiful, thank you.
Okay. Amy, do you have any questions?
I came in to thank you, Susan, for being here and bringing us this wealth of information, this really overflowing, spectacular. I'm a lover of cookbooks too. I'll share like a little, like when people ask like a little known fact about a person, have you ever been in, tell us a little known fact about you. You know, my little known fact is I love to read cookbooks in bed. I do. I love cookbooks that have essays with them.
Yeah.
I find them like they unplug my mind so much better than other things. So I love cookbooks, some of them are here, that have people's personal stories in them. I just finished reading a cookbook called Midnight Chicken.
I don't know Midnight Chicken.
It's not a Jewish cookbook.
Oh, okay. No.
So, but it's actually British. So I felt I should, whatever. It's a really beautiful, sweet cookbook. So I love reading cookbooks that have like personal stories in them in bed. Like it's like Joan Nathan and you have Solomon, he writes in his Zahav, he writes quite a lot, and all sorts of cookbooks. I'm just grateful for this. I'm sad that there aren't any guys in the room with us. Joel, I didn't see him.
So even though there aren't any guys in the room.
Joel's here. Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry, Joel. Of course you're here. In addition to Joel being in the room, there are so many men who check out cookbooks from me.
Really?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
And so many men who will come by and say, what do you got? What's the latest book? So it's actually, I have a number of male cookbook patrons.
You have quite the selection, and thank you for your wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, really.
I have a question for
Yeah.
Rabbi.
Oh,
When you read cookbooks in bed, do you talk back and laugh at them and stuff?
Of course, yes. I actually make notes, like I put a little tab in saying like to actually make this recipe, but mostly I just really enjoy just reading their stories and thinking about it, not so much. I do cook when I can, as you can imagine. My cooking days are limited, although I'm not even going to be at home for dinner tonight, but I made part of dinner early this morning, so
Wow.
we all are.
And this is just the recipes. But not only is it just the recipes, this is really how you make it, right? It's not, my husband and I have this joke about joy of cooking, where it's not that first, you go and you get the egg and you grow the chicken, and then, you grow the wheat to make the bread, and that's the joy of cooking, and that's what this is, these kind of 1950s cookbooks. So they're great. I keep them in the library. People all the time will say, oh, my grandmother made, and this is what their grandmother made. And so they're there, and it's really fun to take a look through them. This is a Joan Nathan cookbook. So it's the same author, it's the same information, but isn't that stunning? And doesn't it make you want to cook it? In a way that, but it's not that the recipe is better or worse or anything, but what they've done with the graphic design has changed everything. And the cookbooks have gone from those little cookbooks that I showed you, these little tiny cookbooks, to when I get to some later, you'll see the weightlifting. This is a book called Jewish Holiday Baking. And I have some more baking books, okay? Okay, again, just sort of standard, right? I'll pass it down. And this is the exact same book, same words. Nothing has changed, except for this is the 10-year anniversary. And now, there have been some Jewish chefs and some Jewish cookbooks that have broken out and have become, I don't know what to say, like celebrity chefs now, right? They become stars. When I go into regular, completely non-Jewish stores, these books are there in the front. People are talking about it. They're big. So I feel like maybe this wasn't the first, but it was one of the first. Jerusalem, I will not pronounce this name correctly, and which has now sparked like 10 other 20-pound cookbooks. And this cookbook, almost nobody has ever come back and told me they've made recipes.
Right.
They've told me how pretty the pictures are.
Oh, sorry.
And also, if you've made recipes, wow, I am in your awe. And then this one, Michael Solomoff, is another one that has also kind of reached the superstardom level that I see everywhere, regardless of Jewish or not. This is really important to me. It is not, this kind of, Eleanor, your question really dovetails nicely because it's not all latkes and bagels and lox, although that's awfully fun to do and that's what we think of. So, for example, this book, I was really excited when it came out. This is Bone Soup and Flip Bread, the Yemenite Jewish Table. And I was so delighted to be able to represent this. There's a lot of Jews from Yemen, and to be able to show their cooking in a great edition. I was just really thrilled, and some people came in the library and said, "Oh, I've been looking for a good Yemeni cookbook," and so there we are. I really mentioned this book. Just came out. It's called The Jewish Cookbook by Leah Koenig. It came out within the month, and it has commentary not only from Leah Koenig, who's a very established, famous chef, but from all kind of the celebrity chefs, you know, Solomoff and Olundini and Joe Nathan and all of those kind of people that are really famous in the Jewish industry, Jewish cooking industry. Also, this series that I've just discovered that I'm really excited about too. It's called the Monday Morning Cooking Club. And it's about 6 women who got together every morning and they, every Monday morning, and they're all, you can just leave it on the table, the ones that are done. And they got together every Monday morning, and every Monday morning they cooked something Jewish together. And it's been going on for many, many years. And they have made 3 cookbooks, and the cookbooks are very highly regarded as being great. And what's a fun, interesting twist is that they live in Australia. And so it's Jewish, but it's also Australian, an Australian take. So I think that's really cool and worth mentioning.
What is your definition of Jewish cooking? Because, you know, I think I mentioned to you that I have not read them, that there was a New York Times article about Italian Jewish cooking.
Yeah.
And
I mean, cooking done by Jews
People who are Jews.
that have traditional recipes. I mean, that come from a Jewish tradition, whatever Jewish tradition they have, right? So if their Jewish tradition is Yemenite, Yemenite Jewish recipes, and they're making harotzis or something that has to do with the Jewish tradition, or a traditional thing that's been passed on, then that's Jewish to me. If they're, you know, if you see that 100 Jewish Foods book from Tablet, that's kind of really intriguing because it takes foods that you're like, that's not Jewish, and then it argues that maybe it is.
Like bazooka gum.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a baking book, and I've been working very hard on trying to acquire more of these. This is a gluten-free baking book. A gluten-free Jewish baking book. So I've been working very hard on that, and I'll show you a little later that I have vegetarian and other kind of books that I really
This is the one.
that I'm trying very hard to be aware of that, but I also feel that the industry is becoming more aware of it. So, well, you could probably find a lot of gluten-free books. To find a Jewish gluten-free book is much more challenging. Books for shrimp paella.
Shrimp, obviously.
Absolutely. So there's actually really fascinating, if you read, and the other thing that's happening with cookbooks, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning, is that a lot of them are becoming narratives. So they're telling you the story of the chef's life, or they're telling you things through food. And so, for example, in that Jerusalem Otolagini book, when you use your 3 peppercorns that you've measured out, the way that book is structured is that there's these 2 chefs that cook together that are partners, and one of them is, you know, from kind of the Palestinian side of town, and one of them is from the Jewish part of town, and how they both grew up with the same food, and how, like, let's say parsley was important to both of them, and how falafel was important to both of them. And it sort of explores kind of where they're the same and where they're different in food. And that's really fascinating. In addition to in fact, that's what I got out of that book more than I got out of the recipes, because the recipes were a little crazy for me. But, so here's some of them. This is Israeli Soul, which is a follow-up to Zahab. I'll pass out. Jerusalem Food. Modern Israeli Cooking. So this is kind of not only Israeli, but again, this is contemporary. So again, we're combining categories here. Israel Eats. I'm seeing this book a lot when I go to bookstores. And Shaya, which is one that is based on a restaurant. I want to say like New Orleans, which is a restaurant cookbook. Is that right, New Orleans?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. If you need kosher cookbooks, I do work to buy those. So this is Kosher by Design is kind of a popular series. This is Enlightened Kosher Cooking. So this is kosher cooking, like sort of a Weight Watcher sort of kosher cooking.
A good kosher crab cake recipe?
A good kosher crab cake recipe, of course.
Faux crab, of course.
This is another kind of cookbook that I'm seeing. This is a kosher cookbook. So it's called Bubby and Me in the Kitchen. It's a kosher cookbook of beloved recipes and modern twists. So both where the author talks about cooking with her grandmother, but also is a chef and has taken it farther. And also we went to college together, so it was really fun and exciting to see this cookbook come out. I didn't know it was coming out, and when I saw it, it was really great. She's a very talented chef, so fellow Brandesian. And then this is new kosher cooking. And one of my favorite cookbooks, it couldn't be more kosher, like a lot kosher, and I'm skipping ahead into the Passover section, because I love this cookbook. So usually, sometimes cookbooks are done by really great publishers, and sometimes they're done by small presses. And this is a very, very small press. It evolved from pamphlets. But this is a yeshiva. I'll show them around when I get to Passover. Oh wait, it keeps going on kosher. Okay, so I have Hip Kosher. Hip, kosher, easy to prepare recipes for today's cooks. And then I have kosher style. Maybe we'll find the crab cakes in there. So. Passover is a genre in cookbooks. I mean, it truly is, because Passover has so many dietary restrictions that pretty much just about every cookbook that I'm passing around will have a Passover section, and then there are Passover cookbooks. And you'll see every Passover, I put them out. And I have to say, as someone who's been following publishing for years, this is one of my favorite design books. It's called Matzah. It came out a few years ago. And I'm going to pass it around because it feels like matzah. I mean, it really does. It's so cool. I mean, it must have cost real money to make that happen. But I think of this book every day. But it has some really, really neat, really cool, interesting recipes. Oh, look, chocolate chip cookies. But everything is kosher for Passover. So there are obviously people who are kosher for Passover that are not kosher for kosher. So I just want you to know that there are many options that we have in the library for that. The New York Times Passover Cookbook, it's an older book, but it's sort of one of the classic Passover cookbooks. I recommend this a lot. Nobody's feeling the matzah. Okay.
Well, we're still going through this.
Okay.
You're too fast for us.
I know, I'm sorry. Well, I have a time deadline. Passover recipes made easy. Passover, perfect for Pesach, recipes you want to make all year long. But then why wouldn't you use another book? And this one I really like. Paula Shower is becoming one of these more superstars. And she wrote a relatively new book called The New Passover Menu, and I recommend this. Again, I am overwhelming you with books. It's all about Nathan's Famous and the history of that. I have a book called Save the Deli, that's in search of the perfect pastrami, crusty rye, and the heart of the Jewish delicatessen. I have an overstuffed history of the Jewish deli. Pastrami on rye. And then I also have books that are just about one thing, right? So I have the bagel. You just want to know about the bagel. I have the knish. To Carol. So has this little series that just came out that's much more manageable. And it's the Little Book of Jewish Appetizers, the Little Book of Jewish Feasts, and just out like this week, the Little Book of Jewish Feasts. So if you want something small and manageable, this is probably familiar to many people in this room, and it is in the library. This is the Sisterhood Serves and Serves, celebration of 25 years. This is recipes collected by well, we're not sisterhood anymore, but recipes collected by people in this synagogue. And this is a genre cookbook where there are recipes, where people from synagogues collect their own recipes and churches as well. It's a genre, or neighborhoods. What I like about, I'll pass this out, but probably you've seen it. What I like about this one is these are from Hadassah. These are really heavy. This is the Hadassah Jewish Holiday Cookbook and the Hadassah Everyday Cookbook, and it is essentially that, where everybody kind of contributed a recipe. Alan, you're off. Everyone contributed a recipe, but it is just laid it's just laid out in this beautiful, beautiful way. And like I said, some of my regular recipes come from these books. Number one, Olive Trees and Honey, vegetarian recipes from Jewish communities around the world. The Jewish Food Hero Cookbook is 50 plant-based recipes. And this is one that I think of the three is kind of the most well-known, and the more current one is Hazana Jewish Vegetarian. So again, in these categories, Yiddish cooking. So what I talked about at the beginning were these just very standard recipe books, right? And that's what this is, Yiddish cuisine. And what's interesting is that we now have books that, these kind of books that are taking those recipes. And this is the Gefilte Manifesto, new recipes for old world Jewish foods. And this is the new Yiddish kitchen, gluten-free and paleo kosher recipes for the holidays and every day. So they tried to check every box they could. That I showed you some of those books that were not cookbooks, but about food. This is Rhapsody in Schmaltz, Yiddish food and why we can't stop eating it. I saw Joel light up for that one. So, and then my very last, I promise, was books that I couldn't quite categorize. So, this is Jewish slow cooker recipes.
What is that?
Jewish slow cooker recipes.
So what was your inspiration for Food for Thought today?
What was my inspiration for Food for Thought today? So it was a few things. It was the fact that cookbooks are really popular. They're essential, right? You have to eat to live. They're also they've changed and evolved so much. And I think that Jewish cooking is an absolutely fascinating topic. It's not what we think it is, and I hope I've shown you that Jewish cooking can be so many things. The variety of Jewish cooking is huge, and I wanted to discuss that
Well, I want to thank you for your time. I really enjoyed your talk today. Thank you.
Any other questions?